There's a new Quinnipiac poll out today, and it says that Mr. Trump has a 36% approval rating. So, what does that say about his actions to date?
Well, Carol, it says quite simply that he has a lot of work to do. And part of this, he can use these discussions with foreign leaders, I think, to begin to reassure a lot of Americans who feel that he has been a little bit trigger happy in his first few days as president, but also during the transition, and who worry about his temperament as president,
Okay, so Trump's approval rating just hit a new low, and this is absolutely catastrophic. And I mean, like, this is the kind of number that predicts a complete and total midterm massacre, because Gallup just released a poll showing Trump at 36% approval, 36% approval, 36% approval. That's the lowest he's been since he took office in January 2025. That's a new second-term low. That's the absolute bottom. That's down 5 points in just a few weeks. That's a massive drop. That's a free fall. And the approval on his handling of the economy is even worse. Only 32% approve of his economic policy. 32%. That's catastrophically low. That's the kind of number that tells you the economy is your biggest weakness. That's the kind of number that tells you voters have completely lost faith in your economic leadership. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Come on, this is absolutely brutal for Trump. This is absolutely devastating. This is the kind of approval rating that ends presidencies. And the thing that's really interesting and really significant is that the MAGA base is actually starting to fracture, because Trump is defying court orders. Trump is ignoring judges. Trump is saying that he's not going to follow what the courts tell him to do. And the hardline Trump supporters love this. The hardline Trump supporters are cheering Trump on. The hardline Trump supporters are saying, yes, fight the judges. Yes, defy the courts. Yes, ignore the rule of law. Yes, this is what we want.
This is our brand new breaking CNN poll conducted by SSRS. Donald Trump's approval rating is at 37%, 57% disapprove. He's been hanging out in the 37 to 40% range for the last 4 months or so. It's been pretty steady. How does it stack up in history? Take a look at where his predecessors were at this stage, October of their first year. You can see he is way down at the bottom, 37% in October. Bill Clinton next closest, and that's 10 points higher. So not stacking up well against his predecessors. We also asked how things are going in the country today, and we see a drop here. In August, 53% of Americans said things are going well in the country. Now it's down to 46%, Allison. That's about where it was in February after the first chaotic weeks of the Trump administration. And of course, you've seen the battles with McConnell. Trump's relationship with congressional Republicans. 32% of Americans approve of the way Trump handles his relations with congressional Republicans. 54% disapprove. That's all Americans. How about among Republicans? Look at this. 68% of Republicans approve of how he handles his relations with the Republicans in Congress. Only 22% disapprove. We also asked, who do you trust more to handle the issues? 30% of Americans, again, overall, say President Trump. 47% of Americans trust these guys, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, more.
But the suburban Republicans and the independents and the swing voters, they're not cheering. They're absolutely not happy. They're fleeing. They're running away from Trump. They're saying, we don't want chaos. We don't want a president who defies the courts. We want stability. We want rule of law. We want a functioning government. And that's creating a real split in the Republican coalition. Because Trump needs both the hardline Trump supporters and the suburban Republicans and the independents. Trump needs the whole coalition to win elections. Trump needs everybody. But now Trump is choosing the hardline supporters and losing the suburban Republicans. Trump is choosing to defy the courts and losing the independents. Trump is creating chaos and losing the swing voters. Trump is basically choosing between his base and winning elections. And Trump is choosing his base, and that's a losing strategy. That's a catastrophic strategy. That's a strategy that's going to cost Trump the House. That's a strategy that's going to cost Republicans the House. That's a strategy that's going to result in a midterm disaster. And this is happening while everything else is falling apart. The Supreme Court is blocking Trump's tariffs. The courts are blocking Trump's agency purges. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to fire people. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to suppress evidence. The courts are blocking everything that Trump is trying to do. And Trump is getting more and more frustrated. Trump is getting more and more angry. Trump is getting more and more defiant. Trump is basically saying, I'm not going to follow court orders. And that defiance is costing him support. That defiance is driving away suburban voters. That defiance is driving away independents. That defiance is causing the approval rating to collapse into absolute freefall. And the suburban voters are absolutely crucial for Republicans because the suburbs are where elections are won. The suburbs are where politicians win or lose. The suburbs are swing territory. The suburbs are where independents live. The suburbs are moderate. The suburbs are the center of American politics. And in Pennsylvania, Trump's approval is only at 40% in the suburbs. 40%? That's absolutely terrible. That's below the critical threshold. That means Republicans are going to lose Pennsylvania suburbs. In Virginia, Trump's approval is only at 35% in the suburbs. 45%? That's absolutely catastrophic. That's the kind of number that means Virginia suburbs are going to go completely Democratic. These are the areas where Republicans need to do well. These are the areas where Republicans need strong approval. These are the areas where Republicans win or lose elections. And Trump's approval is collapsing. Trump's approval is in complete free fall, and the independents have absolutely completely abandoned Trump. According to Nate Silver, Trump's approval among independents is at 25%. 25%. That's roughly half the national average. That's absolutely brutal. That's catastrophic. That means independents have completely given up on Trump. That means swing voters have completely abandoned Trump. That means the people who decide elections have made up their minds against Trump. And that's the kiss of death for Trump. That's the end of Trump's political coalition. And this whole thing is being driven by economic concerns and by the chaos of Trump defying the courts. Because voters blame Trump for inflation. Voters blame Trump for higher prices. Voters blame Trump for tariffs that are making everything more expensive. And then on top of that, you've got this chaos with Trump defying court orders. You've got this chaos with Trump saying he's not going to follow what judges tell him. You've got this chaos with Trump fighting the legal system. And voters are exhausted. Voters are tired of the chaos. Voters want stability. Voters want a president who respects the rule of law. Voters want a functioning government. Voters want things to work. And Trump is not providing that. And that's exactly the kind of issue that flips elections. Because voters don't just vote on the economy. Voters also vote on whether they feel like the government is stable and competent. And Trump is showing neither stability nor competence. Trump is showing chaos. Trump is showing conflict. Trump is showing defiance of the law. Trump is showing that he doesn't respect the Constitution. And that's driving voters away. That's driving suburban voters away. That's driving independents away. That's driving swing voters away. And that's going to determine the outcome of the midterms. All right, so let's talk about why Trump's approval is collapsing and why the MAGA base is starting to fracture and what this means for the 2026 midterms. Because there's a lot going on here and most people don't understand the full significance of what's happening. Most people don't understand why Trump's defiance of court orders is so politically damaging. Most people don't understand why the suburban Republicans are abandoning Trump. Most people don't understand why this approval collapse is so catastrophic. Most people don't understand that this basically determines the outcome of the midterms. So let's break this down and explain what's really happening and why this is such a disaster for Republicans. So Trump's approval is at 36% nationally, but it's much, much worse in key areas. Trump's approval is at 35% in Virginia suburbs. Trump's approval is at 40% in Pennsylvania suburbs. These are supposed to be Republican areas. These are supposed to be strong areas for Trump. These are areas where Trump should be competitive. But Trump's approval has completely collapsed. Trump has basically lost the suburbs. And that's a disaster for Republicans. That's a catastrophe for Republicans. Because the suburbs are where elections are decided. The suburbs are swing territory. The suburbs determine who wins and who loses. The suburbs are the battleground. And Trump is losing the suburbs badly. And the thing that's driving this collapse is a combination of economic problems and political chaos. Because voters blame Trump for inflation. Voters blame Trump for higher prices at the grocery store. Voters blame Trump for higher prices at the gas pump. Voters blame Trump for higher prices at the gas pump. Voters blame Trump for the tariff policy that's making everything more expensive. Voters see their grocery bills going up and they blame Trump. Voters see their rent going up and they blame Trump. Voters see their cost of living going up and they blame Trump. And that's 62% of voters according to the polls. That's the majority of Americans. That's 2/3 of the country blaming Trump for economic problems. But on top of the economic problems, you've also got the political chaos. And this is really important because Trump is defying court orders. Trump is telling judges that he's not going to follow their decisions. Trump is saying that he doesn't have to obey the courts. Trump is creating a constitutional crisis. Trump is saying that he's above the law, and suburban voters don't like that. Suburban voters are rule of law voters. Suburban voters are law and order voters. Suburban voters want a president who respects the rule of law. Suburban voters want a president who follows the Constitution. Suburban voters want stability and order. Suburban voters want a functioning government. And Trump is providing the exact opposite. Trump is providing chaos and defiance. Trump is providing constitutional crisis. Trump is providing a president who thinks he's above the law. And the courts are blocking Trump on multiple fronts. The Supreme Court is blocking Trump's tariffs. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to purge the government. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to suppress evidence. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to suppress evidence. The courts are blocking Trump's attempts to suppress evidence. The courts are blocking Trump at every turn. And Trump is responding by saying he doesn't have to follow the court orders. Trump is responding with defiance. Trump is responding with anger. Trump is responding like an authoritarian. And that's costing him support. That's costing him massive amounts of support. And the MAGA base is actually cheering Trump on. The hardline Trump supporters are saying, yes, defy the courts. Yes, ignore the judges. Yes, don't follow the rule of law. Yes, we want a strongman president who does whatever he wants. Yes, we want a president who's above the law. But that's not what suburban voters want. That's not what independents want. That's not what swing voters want. Swing voters want stability. Swing voters want a functioning government. Swing voters want a president who respects the Constitution. Swing voters want rule of law, not rule of men. And Trump is providing the exact opposite. So you've got this fracture in the Republican coalition. You've got the hardline Trump supporters on one side saying, we want Trump to defy the courts and ignore the judges. And you've got the suburban Republicans on the other side saying, we want Trump to respect the rule of law and follow the Constitution. And Trump is choosing the hardline supporters. Trump is choosing defiance. Trump is choosing to defy the courts. And that's driving away the suburban Republicans. That's driving away the independents. That's driving away the swing voters. That's causing the coalition to collapse. And this is creating a real problem for Trump, a real political problem, because Trump can't govern if he loses the suburban Republicans and the independents. Trump can't win elections if he loses the suburbs. Trump can't maintain a coalition if he's constantly fighting the courts and losing suburban voters. Trump is putting himself in a position where he can't win. Trump is alienating the exact voters he needs to win elections. Trump is destroying his own coalition. And the Gallup number shows just how serious this is, because 36% approval is catastrophically low. That's a second term low. That's lower than Trump was at any point during his first term in the final months. That's lower than Trump's approval at the end of his first term. That's the kind of number that predicts massive losses in the midterms. That's the kind of number that means the House is going to flip. That's the kind of number that means the House is going to flip. That's the kind of number that means Republicans are going to lose seats across the country. That's the kind of number that means Democrats are going to take back the House. And the economic approval number is even worse. Only 32% approve of Trump's handling of the economy. That's absolutely brutal. That's devastating. That's telling you that voters completely lose faith in Trump's economic policy. That's telling you that voters think Trump is destroying the economy. That's telling you that voters blame Trump for their economic pain. And that makes sense because Trump's tariffs are causing inflation. Trump's tariffs are making prices go up. Trump's tariff policy is the opposite of what voters want. Trump's tariff policy is hurting people. And the net approval number is also terrible. According to the Economist tracker, Trump's net approval is minus 19. That means 19% more people disapprove than approve. That's a massive gap. That's a huge gap. That's the kind of gap that predicts electoral disaster. That's the kind of gap that means you're going to lose elections. And this net approval has plunged from January. It's gone down 19 points since Trump took office in January 2025. That tells you that Trump's approval has collapsed over time. That tells you that Trump is becoming less popular, not more popular. That tells you that things are getting worse for Trump, not better. That tells you that Trump is heading toward a landslide loss in the midterms. And the MAGA base is slipping. According to the Economist tracker, Trump's approval among Republicans has dropped from 91% to 84%. That's a 7-point drop among Republicans among his own party. That tells you that even some Republicans are abandoning Trump. That tells you that even some of his base is getting tired of Trump. That tells you that even some MAGA supporters are realizing that Trump's defiance of the courts is a problem. Not all of them, but some. And when you start losing your own base, you're in real trouble. And the independents have pretty much completely abandoned Trump. Only 25% of independents approve of Trump, according to Nate Silver. That's roughly half the national average. That's absolutely brutal. That means independents have given up on Trump. That means swing voters don't believe in Trump. That means the people who decide elections are voting against Trump. And that's the end of Trump's political career as an elected official. And this whole situation is being driven by the courts blocking Trump and Trump responding with defiance, because Trump appointed a bunch of judges expecting them to do whatever Trump wants. But the judges are actually following the law. The judges are actually interpreting the Constitution. The judges are blocking Trump's unconstitutional actions. And Trump doesn't like that. Trump is angry, Trump is defiant, and Trump is threatening to defy the courts. And that's costing him support. That's costing him massive amounts of support. That's destroying his coalition. The suburban voters, especially, are worried about Trump's defiance of the courts because suburban voters are law and order voters. Suburban voters care about the rule of law. Suburban voters don't want a president who defies the courts. Suburban voters don't want constitutional chaos. Suburban voters don't want to live in a dictatorship. Suburban voters want a president who respects the Constitution. And Trump is showing that he doesn't respect the Constitution. Trump is showing that he wants to be above the law. Trump is showing that he's willing to defy court orders. And that's driving suburban voters away. That's driving them crazy. That's making them vote for Democrats. And this is creating a real political problem for Trump heading into the midterms because Trump needs the suburbs. Trump needs independents. Trump needs swing voters. Trump needs everyone. But Trump is losing all of them. Trump's approval is collapsing. And that's going to translate into electoral losses. That's going to translate into Republicans losing the House. That's going to translate into a midterm massacre for Republicans. That's going to translate into Democrats taking back control of Congress. Okay, so let's break down what Trump's 36% approval rating actually means for the 2026 midterms and for the survival of the Republican Party as a major political force and for the future of American democracy. Because there are really 5 key things that matter here. And if you understand these 5 things, you understand why this is such a disaster for Republicans and why this basically guarantees that Democrats are going to take back the House. First, 36% approval predicts massive midterm losses. That's just basic political math. Historically, when a president's approval is below 40%, his party loses seats in the midterms. When a president's approval is in the 30s, his party loses a lot of seats. When a president's approval is below 35%, his party loses control of Congress. And Trump is at 36%. Trump is right on the edge. Trump is on the verge of his party losing control of Congress. Trump is basically guaranteeing a midterm massacre. That's just how midterms work. That's just political reality. There's no way around it. Second, the suburban collapse is absolutely devastating for Republicans. And this is really important. Republicans need the suburbs to win. Republicans need college-educated voters. Republicans need moderate voters. Republicans need college-educated voters. Republicans need moderate voters. Republicans need independents. But Trump is losing all of them. Trump's approval in the suburbs is below 45%. Trump's approval in college-educated suburbs is even worse. Trump's approval in the key swing suburbs in Pennsylvania and Virginia and Arizona is collapsing. And without the suburbs, Republicans can't win. Republicans can't maintain the House. Republicans can't win in swing districts. Republicans can't compete in the areas where elections are actually decided. So the suburban collapse is absolutely catastrophic for Republicans. It's basically a death knell for Republican chances in the midterms. Third, the independent voter collapse is absolutely devastating. And this is crucial. Independents are 25% of the electorate and they're swing voters. Independents are the people who decide elections. Independents are the marginal voters who determine the outcome. And only 25% of independents approve of Trump. That means 75% of independents disapprove. That means independents have completely abandoned Trump. That means the people who decide elections have made up their minds against Trump. And that's an absolute disaster. That means Republicans are going to lose swing districts across the country. That means Democrats are going to win in districts where Republicans thought they were safe. Fourth, the economic handling approval at 32% is a complete disaster. And this is really important. The economy is the #1 issue for voters. The economy is what voters care about most. And voters completely lack confidence in Trump's economic policy. Only 32% think Trump is handling the economy well. That means 68% think Trump is doing a bad job on the economy. That means voters think Trump's policies are hurting them. That means voters blame Trump for inflation. That means voters blame Trump for higher prices. That means voters are suffering economically and they blame Trump. And that's an absolute disaster for Trump and Republicans. That's unrecoverable. That's the kind of economic disapproval that determines elections. Fifth, the MAGA base fracture is creating problems even among Trump supporters. Because even Republicans are slipping from 91% approval to 84% approval. Even some Trump supporters are getting tired of Trump. Even some of Trump's base is realizing that defying the courts is a problem. Even some MAGA supporters are worried about constitutional chaos. And once you start losing your own base, you're in real trouble. Once your own party starts turning against you, you're finished. Once you can't hold your base together, you can't win. And that's what's happening to Trump. What's really happening here is that Trump has created a situation where he's losing on all fronts. Trump's approval is collapsing. The suburbs are abandoning Trump. Independents have given up on Trump. The economy is a disaster under Trump. The courts are blocking Trump. And Trump is responding by becoming even more defiant and even more chaotic. and that's only making things worse. That's only driving more voters away. That's only accelerating the collapse of Trump's coalition. And this is going to have massive implications for the 2026 midterms because voters are going to remember Trump's approval at 36%. Voters are going to remember that Trump's economic approval was only 32%. Voters are going to remember that Trump was defying the courts. Voters are going to remember that Trump was causing chaos. Voters are going to remember that Trump wasn't respecting the rule of law, and voters are going to vote against Trump and against Republicans. Voters are going to vote for Democrats. Voters are going to take back the House for Democrats. Voters are going to restore sanity to government, and Democrats are going to hammer this in their campaign ads. Democrats are going to say Trump's approval is at 36%. Trump's approval on the economy is only 32%. Trump is defying the courts. Trump is causing chaos. That tells you everything you need to know about Trump's presidency. And that message is going to resonate with voters. That message is going to be incredibly powerful. That message is going to flip swing districts. That message is going to take back the House for Democrats. And Republicans are not going to be able to defend themselves against this message. So this 36% approval rating is absolutely devastating for Trump and for Republicans. This is the kind of number that determines the outcome of midterm elections. This is the kind of number that predicts massive losses. This is the kind of number that means Democrats are going to take back the House. This is the kind of number that means Republicans are going to suffer a midterm massacre. This is the kind of number that changes the course of political history. So buckle up, because the 2026 midterms are probably already decided. The voters have made up their minds. The voters have decided that they don't approve of Trump. The voters have decided that they're going to vote for Democrats. The voters have decided that they want stability and rule of law instead of chaos and defiance. The voters have decided that they want a functioning government instead of constitutional crisis, and that's going to translate into massive losses for Republicans. That's going to translate into Democrats taking back the House. That's going to translate into a complete reversal of political power. Make sure you're subscribed because we're going to have complete coverage of how Trump's collapsing approval impacts the 2026 midterms and what it means for the future of the Republican Party and for American politics and for the survival of democracy. This is the beginning of the end of Trump's influence over the Republican Party. This is the beginning of the collapse of the Republican coalition. This is the beginning of a new political era where Democrats are back in power and where normal governance returns. This is only going to get more significant as we get closer to the midterms.